Hello, everybody, and welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast. I'm Kevin McCaffrey, and this is your opening week friend, Adam Mamawala. What's up, Adam?
Opening week friend and whole season friend. I hope to
Yeah.
be as optimistic the whole season as I am right now.
Yeah, you don't have options left, so you have to stay in the majors. Otherwise, you have to be offered to other
Exactly.
podcasts, I think, is how it works.
Exactly. I've run out of options, but they didn't. There was no determination made on that until yesterday. So
We did have to wait. We had to wait a
yeah,
good long time. And as we said, you may have noticed that commercials didn't roll before we did this podcast just now, before this podcast began. And that's new. It's new over the last 6 months. We also said we're Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast, which is a slightly different title. This is unimportant for you guys. If you're hearing this, you still are getting the feed as normal. That's great. We were, for 6 months, we were with a network in theory called the Brawl Network. And so we were Cubs Brawl. That we are no longer with that network. So we are back to just independent, baby.
we've consciously uncoupled, and we're
Yes.
back. We're back to being independent. It makes no difference for you. The show never changed. It will still be us doing what we usually do. But
There will
yes,
be
we
less
are- we
ads
are-
in Spanish, I think.
Yes. So to anybody who listens to us solely for the Spanish ads, we cannot offer you that anymore.
That is troubling, and we're not against Spanish ads. If a Spanish company wants to come in here and sponsor us, we're all about it. But yes, it was an interesting thing. We'll talk about this for a minute before we get into Cubs, and that'll be all we'll say about it for the year. But we got approached by basically a podcast network that does a lot of sports stuff. We didn't really know anyone over there, but they made us a pitch about things that they would do and that would happen. And God bless, wish them the best of luck. Didn't work out for us. And I would also say there's when you join a group, like I know Adam knows me, so we can more or less vouch for each other, I would say,
Yes.
So when you join a larger broadcast network, we didn't do full background checks on everybody. And then it turns out we weren't, I think, the best match overall, I would say, over there.
I think that's a good and diplomatic way to say that. By the way, follow Kevin at Barstool Kevin on Twitter.
Barstool Kev, absolutely don't. There probably is a Barstool Kev.
There definitely is a Barstool Kev.
Right.
And it's Kev specifically, not Kevin.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so Adam and I basically, we decided it took a little bit of a process, but we decided to get back to just us.
Yeah, and the important part is, and I think the reason we're bringing all this up is for anybody who had a difficult time accessing the show at any point. Basically, we shifted where we were hosting it, and so for anybody who that became a headache for, we want to sincerely apologize and hope that you will welcome us back with open arms. And also, unless John Boy comes after us like the compound, I think we're here for the time being.
We're in until we get a big pitch. Yeah,
exactly. We'll be better about communicating if we're going anywhere, and make sure that you can still listen to us, because we enjoy doing this. And right now the Cubs are 3-1, and we're excited to record this podcast.
Yes, we are. I mean, it's been a nice week since the first day, at least. The opening day was a bummer, but I was personally just so happy to have the Cubs back, even though it was a bummer of a game in result and certainly in process. It was extremely unfun to watch, I would say. Just everybody walking everybody. I believe 7 inning leadoff walks, maybe.
Yeah, 11 total. It was a real White Sox lefty of a game, and that it was a bummer.
Yes, and Bummer had a bummer of a game too, even though he's very good. But yeah, I mean, he's going through a lot with the passing of Eloy Jimenez and all that. That team is really
thoughts up for Eloy and his family.
Big time. But since then, the Cubs are streaking as we speak now. They've won 3 games straight, and things have looked pretty good.
Let me start by saying that I texted my beloved aunt and uncle, who are Brewers fans. I will not hold it against them, and said, could you please let your pitchers know to stop beaning our players? That would be great.
That would be great. The scariest one, I mean, there was a couple of scary ones, right? So Javi took one off the bone, it seemed like, right around the knee area, which sucked. And then Wilson Contreras took one off the dome, took one right off the helmet, and he was fine. Over at Bleacher Nation, they had a very funny tweet that was the baseball okay? Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but Wilson knows that wasn't intentional from Devin Williams, because he immediately, his helmet popped off.
Of course, yeah.
He patted the catcher on the head and he was smiling at first. If Wilson thought you beamed him intentionally, someone would be dead, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like that. Probably the last guy in the Cubs lineup you want to start something with.
Yeah, I mean, if Wilson had gone after Williams, you know that Nick Castellanos would have been suspended for at least 5 games.
Yes, exactly. Nick might have had some influence on this. We can't put it past him. Maybe he texted him, and that's got to be a couple extra games. If a flex was worth 2.
Oh my gosh. But I'm jumping ahead here. So as you alluded to, the Cubs opening day game was very much the sort of opening day that we got used to over the years, where it's like, man, we were so excited and we waited all this time for this, and man, it's like, it wasn't even that it was just bad. It was that it was like excruciating to watch. It's the sort of game where if you were trying to convince somebody who thinks baseball is boring that it's not, you don't show them that game.
No,
it just dragged. There were a million pitching changes. There was no like pace at all. It was not fun.
No, it was, and I believe the only Cubs pitcher who didn't walk anyone was apparently ninth inning weapon Alec Mills, who came in and didn't walk anyone, cleaned up there. And then the most recent game, as we record this, Alec Mills came in for a real save opportunity and had my favorite kind of save, just boring as hell. Just came in and no real drama, shut it down against the Brewers. But yeah, that was a mess. And then the weekend, the games they were games, I feel like, against the Pirates where it felt comfortable, then it wasn't, and then it was fine, you know? But there was a good variety of things to like so far in the first, 3-1 start in the first 4-game set of the year.
Yeah, let's start with that. Give me some stuff that you're feeling positive about after 4 games.
So I think maybe my favorite stat that I saw out of everything, it was a good weekend to be on Twitter. And by the way, follow us on Twitter at AwayGamesPod, and same thing on Instagram at AwayGamesPod. Of all the baseball tweets I saw, our friend Brian over at Cub Prospects noted that Chris Bryant, on just a RBI single to right field, registered his highest exit velocity to the opposite field since a home run in, I believe it was 2017. It could have been 2018, wow. But it's been years since Chris Bryant hit a ball that hard the other way. Bryant also finally took one of those meatball fastballs over the middle of the plate that we had been lamenting his missing, and he deposited in center field early the previous game, I believe. So I think KB going opposite field with some authority and squaring up a fastball in the zone, as far as single things, and again, shout out to Brian for illustrating how hard he hit that ball. I think that's huge, just because Chris Bryant possibly being Chris Bryant again is an MVP level player. That's the first one I'll say of.
And he had a bit of an injury scare too.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like they are going to expand that padding, which should have been done already. The only thing I can even compare it to, and this is a real deep cut, is former Cub Bill Miller. I don't know if you remember that injury. He was in Old Busch Stadium where he kind of like slid to try to catch a ball in foul territory in that same area that Bryant did, and the padding didn't extend to the ground, and he, I think, broke his kneecap. And I mean, Bryant easily could have done that.
Absolutely. It just seems like, I mean, do we not have measuring tape at Wrigley Field?
There's no aesthetic or practical reason that it wouldn't extend up to the top.
No, and Chris banged his knee pretty hard off the brick there, and he made a joke about it afterwards, saying he was going to talk to Jed and see if he could get him to extend it to the top and see how much pull he had around here. And they are apparently, next time the Cubs leave Wrigley, when they come back, the padding will theoretically be to the top of the wall. So good, thank you. One thing that frustrated me in social media was some people being like, "Oh, great, this is the Chris Bryant injury," which I understand he's had some injuries that have been difficult to deal with, but the tone of Chris Bryant, like, oh, he just always has an injury and can't play.
Here we go again. Yeah.
He gets injured because he plays hard and things happen. I mean, he messed up his wrist diving for a ball in left field. He got pegged before, in a previous season against Colorado, I believe. That was not his fault. And the trouble comes from him playing hard and then attempting to play through it, and the team allowing him to play through it when he should be recovering.
And it's not his fault that the Ricketts are trying to save money on padding.
Yes, exactly. A certain amount of square footage of padding. Who knows? I mean, if anyone wants to be paid market value going forward, these are the kinds of cuts you have to make. Yeah, so I thought that it was good to see him survive that scare, and really encouraging to see that bat play a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think offensively, the thing that most excites me is KB, and of course, pitching wise, and I think you would probably agree. Obviously, the starting pitching has been good. Hendrick struggled, but
Hmm.
Craig Kimbrell. I mean, we're seeing a brief glimpse of what we thought we were getting 2 years ago, and maybe this is actually different. I mean, this is the first time since 2018 that he will have started a season at the beginning of it.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
true. This is the first time in years that Craig Kimbrell has had a somewhat normal lead up
Yeah.
to a season, because last season wasn't that way for anybody. And the
Right.
previous year, obviously, he lasted until the middle of the year before being signed when he was healthy. And just how bizarre is it to think about that? Arguably among the most dominant closers of all time, but just a top level player not signing until the season has already begun just because contracts aren't being offered. I mean,
Right.
it's just a bizarre thing to think back on. But seeing Kimbrel sort of feel good, and we've seen it could be a meme for this year, smiling Craig Kimbrel walking away, sort of doing the walk back towards the mound with the catcher after a save, or technically
Yeah.
not a save in the game before that, but closing out the game, is fun. Just good to see him feeling good.
Yeah, and you think about how quickly things went downhill last year. I mean, I think it was almost this exact time. It was like that first Monday after opening day where there was that wild finish in Cincinnati that Jeffers had to come in and bail him out. And that was in a situation where the Cubs were up by a lot and he
Mm-hmm.
couldn't nail down even a game in a non-safe situation. So I would think just mentally for him to have his first two appearances go the way they did is going to make a big difference. And, we may be sitting here a week from now talking about how he looks more like he did last year and the last couple of years than he has the first two games, but there's no way to frame it as anything other than a really good sign. And speaking
I
of framing, good job, Wilson.
Yeah, that was the one of the three things on my list for things I was most excited about is Wilson Contreras, who finally got on the board with his first hit, which was a very well struck home run on Monday against the Brewers. Uh, Even though he didn't have a hit to that point, he had a game where he went 0 for 2 with the steal and 2 runs scored and was just going bananas on the base paths, which sometimes does not work out for Wilson, but it did then. He was creating runs. And he's a catcher who's hit leadoff in the first series. You don't see that a lot, but the amount of good impact that Wilson Contreras has been having on these games without the bat, when he's a top two, at worst top three hitting catcher in all of Major League Baseball, and the way he's affecting these games without his bat, I think shows the sort of like massive ceiling that this guy has. And just watching, I don't have the numbers, the framing numbers on me right now, and those take a long time to sort of even out over the course of the season. But just anecdotally, the man is stealing strikes more than the opposing catchers are in every one of these games. He is such a smooth receiver back there.
Yeah, and we've talked about before how the whole idea of framing is a little ridiculous, but in a world where framing is still important, which it clearly is, he has markedly improved that.
I mean, he's gone from extremely below average to borderline elite as a framer, and that's something that you thought he could do. He's a catcher with an excessive level of athleticism for the position, and clearly he cares about getting better, in an extreme way too. And the man dedicated himself, and over the course of an off season before this past one, he just got really good at it. He went from very not good to extremely good. And that's difficult. I mean, you almost never see anyone do that with any single skill. And I just think it's awesome to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as far as some of the other guys who struggled last year, which is everybody,
Mm-hmm.
what are you what have you seen so far that is encouraging to you? I think certainly Javi going right center with a home run is a really good sign. What are you feeling good
I
about?
think that's exactly it. That's the first thing that comes to mind is Javi going to the opposite field, because as we know, when he's on, he's one of the best in Major League Baseball in terms of going to the opposite field with power. He just has that kind of elite level bat speed and acceleration that he doesn't have to pull the ball to do serious extra base damage on it. And Javi waiting a little longer might keep him from completely selling out on those sliders that don't come within, the zip code of the plate. And Javier, first couple games were not so great for him at the plate. He still looked a little lost and reaching for it, but the last couple days he's looked real good. And I think him punishing the ball the opposite way is huge.
Yeah.
And we saw Rizzo get the first hit of the season. Rizzo also has a stolen base already, which is rare. But I think seeing great signs from KB and Javi is huge. And then now I just want to see Rizzo get his first homer of the year and settle in a little bit.
Right, and as always with Rizzo, and I think there's going to be much more attention on it this year than there's ever been in the past. He continues to do all of the things that you would want a leader to do, and we get to see all of those moments where he's cheering his teammates on, or pumping guys up, or celebrating with them after the game, or just being what he's been this entire time, which is someone you should extend and should have extended already. But I love that that's going to be like a talking point all season, where hopefully just from us fans making enough noise, there almost won't be a choice but to extend him, because it's going to be clear that people are going to lose their shit if the Cubs don't.
I mean, you hope so. It's just a matter of, do they care or not, And
Right.
it's a thing where they've had so much goodwill where I don't know if they know how bad it can get. I mean, we've seen just it's a micro example, but watching how the Ricketts have suddenly in the past, even as of a couple years ago, stopped showing up at the Cubs convention, saying, "Oh, I don't know. I don't think people are interested." It's like, yeah, as soon as you're getting booed, we saw Ricketts, obviously the reaction to they weren't doing the panel, but he was just talking about Marquee, and he was very surprised to be booed about that. So I think that I'm hopeful that the ownership group and Jed Hoyer aren't too sort of isolated in their ivory tower to realize how bad it would be to not finish this deal with Rizzo. But the problem is, and we're recording this on Tuesday, and Rizzo had a radio hit this morning where he was talking about this, and he sounds like he is not interested in hearing anything during the season. He approached them at the beginning of last year. They told him to go away. And then he said, okay, well, I very much want to be here, want to extend. Opening day is the deadline. They did not, as far as we know, as far as all the reporting we've seen, they did not make a serious offer to him. And so now he says, okay, I'm shutting it down. And now we have to wait until the season is literally over in all likelihood.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting to consider how the Cubs season going will impact that decision.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate, but I think the Cubs had a long time to get another level of some amount of discount, probably. And I think because they didn't get it done, if anything, if I was Rizzo, I would be emotionally committed to not giving a discount at this point. Like, he tried to start the extension talks with them, was rebuffed. I mean, anyway, just think about you at your workplace, whatever your job is. If you go to them and say you want to make the commitment and they just turn their back on you, and you keep being very clear about what you think is fair, and you were never given that. I mean, I don't know. I think obviously he loves the fans. He wants to stay with this team. He loves the team. He loves the city. But I think the Cubs have cost themselves some money, and that's assuming they do the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, not since what the Red Sox offered John Lester can I even think about something that's like this disrespectful to someone who means that much to an organization.
And I mean, it's hard to come up with a better comparison than the Red Sox and John Lester, right? John Lester never wanted to leave the Red Sox. And in terms of just like also a team leader, World Series winner, cancer survivor, it sounds like I'm doing a version of Ric Flair's limousine riding, like, yeah, it just seems like they have not been paying attention to history or the present, and it's very frustrating. And we don't want to make this podcast just bitching about them not extending Rizzo, but also they didn't extend anybody. And we're seeing promising things here from Javi and KB, and there is a world, and it's not the worst future that we could imagine for the Cubs here, but there is a world where all these guys play up to the top of their ability, and because the Cubs did not make a commitment, we're watching them all leave.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. Well, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on like each starting pitcher that we've seen. I mean, I think we know that Hendricks was not as sharp as he usually is. Certainly not as sharp as he was last opening day.
Mhm.
But you have to feel good about Arrieta. It's hard not to feel good about Davies. And I mean, Trevor Williams got six. I mean, that was like something out of a movie.
Yeah, perfect through five. And we tweeted from the At Away Games Pod Twitter account, tweeted at Marquee, hire Richard Williams, I believe is his name. But
Yeah.
also follow him on Twitter. Follow Trevor Williams' dad on Twitter. Trevor Williams' dad and Adbert Alzolay are the two most positive Twitter influences in the Cubs world, I would say. They're both just so wholesome and wonderful.
Yeah, it was hard not to get emotional listening to him talk about being able to watch his son pitch on that mound in a Cubs uniform. I mean, that's like dream stuff right there.
It's so great. So, and I think one thing, obviously the results were good with the guys you just mentioned there. But also the stuff looked good. The process looked good.
Yeah.
From all these guys. Arrieta's stuff was livelier. I mean, the curveball was biting in a way that, like, I maybe it's just been a while since I've seen Arrieta, and he relied, I think, during his true prime on that really hard cutter more. But man, that curveball is moving. Like it looks really good, and he looked great out there. Trevor Williams has so many. I mean, he's not cranking up like high 90s heat, but he has that thing that Craig Kimbrell and Tyson Miller also have, where it's an overhand release, but from a particularly low point, and he gets elite extension on it. So you're seeing that fastball, even though it's 91 to 93, really sneak up on people. The changeup was great. The slider people were whiffing on. As of this point, as we speak, Trevor Williams has the highest percentage of called and swinging strikes combined out of any pitcher in Major League Baseball in the first time through. So, and it's pretty good. I think that's, and Kyle Davies, or excuse me, Zach Davies. God, I can't do the Kyle Davies mix up. Zach Davies was looked great too. I mean, it just felt like a really comfortable cycle through this rotation.
Yeah, and that was something that was kind of the hallmark of the 2020 Cubs, albeit in a very short season, and it would be great to think that that's going to continue. Obviously, we're recording this before Alzolay has made his first start. No matter how it goes, I'm not going to be down on him, but it would be fantastic to see everybody go through the rotation once, and for him to come out, and even if it's a quality start and 6 innings pitched and 2-3 runs, like I think we'll all you're absolutely going to take that out of that spot, and you have to feel good about the bullpen. You talk about Mills coming in save situations, which is not something that we would have expected, or in the 9th inning, and also just big outs. I mean, the way that they got that huge double play over the weekend. I think it was that Brothers or Chafin?
Rex pitching? Brothers, yeah.
Yeah, Brothers, and then obviously Williams is a starting pitcher, but that double play with the bases loaded last night, like, that's the kind of stuff that needs to happen if you're going to win close games. And thus far it's happened.
Absolutely. And I know people are panicky about Rex Brothers, and he wasn't perfect that inning by any means, but they got out of it. He did fine. And everything we've seen of him, this is going back to last year in the alternate site, and I know alternate site games don't count, but the reports are all that he looked really good. And one imperfect appearance has not soured me on Rex Brothers for at the moment either. And I think same goes for Jason Adam. Bodie had a chance on Monday night to turn a double play, kept the ball in front of him, still got an out. But not getting that double play led to the 3-run bomb by Narvaez. And Adam also was not at his sharpest. But Jason Adams has been...
If I had a nickel for every time I've heard that.
Yes, this is that we would pull that for a soundbite. Oh, are Kevin and Adam beefing? Are they going to go independent from each other? Stay tuned. Yeah, it's like Twitter was freaking out, and I know that's what Twitter does. But the people like, oh, Jason Adam, yeah, he sucks crowd. There was a lot of people acting like that. Were we all Kansas City Royal fans in 2018? Because I checked the numbers. That's the only time Jason Adam hasn't been pretty good. He was
good.
That's
a weird, aggressive opinion to have.
Yeah, no, I think we might see Adam getting optioned just as the Cubs play games with these options a little bit when Rowan Witt gets healthy again, because Adam
Right.
is, I think, maybe the only optionable pitcher left in that bullpen. Everyone else would
Yeah.
have to be exposed to waivers. But yeah, I think, as you say, the bullpen is encouraging here. The only guy we haven't seen is Maples, and we haven't seen Maples. We haven't seen newly signed backup catcher Tony Walters. Those are the only Cubs we haven't seen. David Ross has had a different lineup every game. I don't have a problem with it. They've all made sense, but some people
Yeah.
freak out about that kind of thing.
But yeah, Chafin has looked great. Workman, I've liked what I've seen from him so far. He's been used earlier than I would have expected. Like I think even on opening day, right? Wasn't he the first guy out of the pen after Hendricks?
Yes, he was totally, and that's an interesting thing to note too. There seems to have been, they didn't just go chalk with bullpen roles here, because Brandon Workman has been a closer as recently as 2019, and I also thought maybe he would be the backup closer choice to Kimbrel, but they're deploying, and he's a high walk guy and a very high strikeout guy when he's on. And it seems like, yeah, they're choosing to deploy him earlier in the game. Also, maybe when they need a strikeout. And then it seems like, the second save opportunity of the year went to Alec Mills. And at first I was like, well, you keep Alec Mills around to be your long man, right? But the more I think about it, the more I like that doesn't seem to be the plan for him. Because if they're going to carry this many pitchers, which they're carrying a ton of pitchers, it's a short bench right now, but then you don't really need a long man as much in the same sense. And if Alec Mills is one of your best pitchers and most reliable guys you can count on to not get himself in trouble, I think I really like that as a end of bullpen guy.
Right. He doesn't have the kind of stuff that you would expect to see out of somebody closing. Probably not since Joe Borowski have we seen a similar type.
Ooh, but, nice. Good pull.
I think you tweeted this from the Away Games account last night. You could do a lot worse in your closer position than a guy who pounds the strike zone and never gets flustered.
Yes. I am extremely not calling Alec Mills Trevor Hoffman, but that was a closer who didn't throw super hard, like when he was elite, he threw around 90, and Mills has several pitches he can deploy. He's got that funky 66-mile-an-hour curveball he can loop in there. He can really dot that two-seamer 91, 92 and a really good change. And I think that's
and he's our friend. And
he's our friend. He's a friend of the show.
Can't overstate that.
Yes, exactly. He's a friend of the show. So we love that too.
Now, you mentioned the fact that the Cubs are carrying a lot of pitchers, which they are, and that the bench is fairly short. Of the bench guys, what are your impressions so far? So I'm talking like Duffy, Marisnik, Sogard. What are your feelings to this point?
Sogard has been good. You know what I mean? Like, I think we were both, I was certainly I was not super into Sogard. I wouldn't say as a signing, but I can't argue with what he's done thus far.
That was a great at bat last night. That the ball that he tripled on, that was almost identical to that Zobrist double down the line against San Francisco in the 2016 playoffs. It was a very, very similar swing.
Look at that pull. Yeah. And I guess that's something we haven't seen from the Cubs off the bench, right? Is a very high contact bat that comes in against. This is a guy, that was against the best reliever from last year and a guy who strikes out everybody. And that is exactly what you needed right then. Was you needed contact, and he came in and did that. So he's giving them something, something that was missing. And I'm fine with that for the moment. I'd like to see it not become practice for him double switching in for Bodie in like the fifth inning, like we saw once. I'd rather see Bodie, who we just saw tattoo a ball into the stands yesterday.
That ball never got above like 30 feet. That was a laser.
David Bodie hits balls hard. Holler at obvious shirts. He just does. He has like elite exit velocity. He can just hit balls harder than most people can, and that's a cool skill. Also, I know a lot of people there have been a lot of people who are down on Sogard as a signing, and also we don't even really officially know, I think, his vaccine stance, but his wife Casey very much feels vaccinating people is infringing on their freedom, etc. Follow or don't follow Casey Sogard on Instagram if you want to see that. But our friend Tom Dog on Twitter, Thomas Attila Lewis, said that his experience with Sogard is that he was a great guy, a very kind guy. He said at spring training with the A's about 8 years ago, his son got asked to be a bat boy for them, and he said he was extremely nice to his son. So I wanted to throw this is a firsthand report of Sogard being a very cool person to our friend Tom's kid. He also said,
given that we have, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, he also said Doolittle, Reddick, and Cespedes were also great. So
Doolittle doesn't surprise me. I wouldn't have much
best.
opinions about the other guys.
Yeah.
Plus, it's also nice just from an aesthetic point of view to balance Alec Mills' glasses with Eric Sogard's. They're very similar.
That's true. Let's get Warby Parker, the team, get involved. And Marisnik is fun too.
Yeah, I did tweet. I believe it was a walk, perhaps, that he drew. But I did tweet from our account that I have to be honest, and Eric Sogard has been a real shot in the arm for this club, and I didn't feel that tweet got enough love. But
I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
Yes,
I was a little distressed about it. 2 likes, come on, you guys can do better.
I think we're being shadow banned. I think the away game.
I think we might be. We might be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Marisnik is going to be a good weapon, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Jock, who was told that he was going to get starts against lefties. Last night he did not get the start against the lefty, so it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see like how much of that duty goes to Hap, how much they shift around the outfield. But just from a quick eye test, like Peterson seems to be a great teammate. He's already like one of the guys on the top step of the dugout sort of person, and I mean, it's hard not to be excited about this team. I know the Pirates are not going to be very good. The Brewers are kind of a toss-up. And if there's anything that is a point of concern for me, it's that we're 4 games into the season and the Cubs have not scored more than 5 runs. You definitely want to see that at some point.
You do,
but,
yes.
Yeah.
You'd like to see just a big explosive set of runs. I think it might even still be the case, but at some point yesterday, the Cubs had more runs than hits, which is weird. If it continued like that, I guess it would be fine as long as you're piling up a ton of runs. But yeah, you would like to see a little bit more of an explosion. But a couple of the things that this team does differently than some Cubs teams in recent past, and again, it's a small sample here, but you're seeing a little bit more contact made and a bullpen that looks really good. And that is how you stack up those 2 qualities can play a big part in how you stack up wins without scoring a ton of runs. Is a bullpen that shuts it down. And just talking about Jock, who we're still waiting on to get his first regular season hit after just destroying the ball in spring training. But Jock he came in as a big hit and miss guy when he came up with the Dodgers, but he's really improved his contact ability, and he ripped a ball down the first baseline that led to a run. Chris Bryant's always excellent base running, sliding into second, and that ended up being the difference in the game. So again, sort of like we said with Wilson, a guy who's making a difference even if the stats aren't gaudy yet.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And I mean, looking forward as we have done in the past and may or may not do again, when you look at the Cubs schedule, it's Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, Milwaukee. So these first 12 games are against 2 teams that are, the Pirates are not going to be a good team. The Brewers are, I think most people think, are going to be kind of middle of the road.
I think they'll be middle of the road too. I mean, I think they'll be NL Central good, which is unfortunately its own.
And I mean, you
ranking.
could describe the Cubs that way too, and I don't think you would be wrong. But after that, you're looking at Atlanta and New York, and that's not; those are not going to be easy series. So, as they did last year, it would be really nice to see this team get off to a good start. And I'm not saying they're going to start out 13-3 like they did last year, but even if we're looking at these first 12 games, if you're telling me that the Cubs could be like even 7-5, 8-4, you're going to feel reasonably good about that.
Yeah, I think when you're playing Pittsburgh in half that first chunk of games, I think you want to be closer to the 8-4 range, but you figure you really hope to take 2 of 3 against Milwaukee at home, and you hope to get 1 of 3 in Milwaukee, and that's in that way you'd be treading water with one of your 2, what you assume will be one of your two biggest rivals. I love what Big Stick Nick is doing for the Reds right now, but I just don't think the Reds are going to be there at the end.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I think with Milwaukee, you want to at least be even through this heavy run of games with them, and against Pittsburgh, you got to be taking every series with Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Anytime you lose a series against, I think a 3-game series, you got to win 2 of 3. Ideally, you want to sweep.
Yeah.
And if we do have those 4-game sets, you got to take 3 of 4. Like a split against Pittsburgh, home or away, is not what you're looking for. And this is the time to try to bank some wins, because you are going to face tougher opponents. Before we wrap up here, as always, if you want to bet on baseball, which we highly recommend, Thrive Fantasy is a great place to do it. We still have the same promo going on, where if it's your first deposit of $20 or more, you'll get a free $20 with promo code Away Games. You can have some fun there. And we do describe ourselves, brawl or not, as Away Games, a Chicago Cubs and baseball podcast. So what has been interesting to you around baseball? Inflatable trash cans, Shohei Ohtani. What are we thinking about?
These are all great calls, and both happening in Anaheim. Anaheim's been a very exciting place. The Anaheim's been maybe the center of the most exciting things in this week, because they had a great opening series against the White Sox, right? And we saw Shohei Ohtani on Sunday night throwing the ball 101, hitting a ball 115.
That was so loud. That home run was so loud.
So it just great. So the Shohei stuff has been extremely exciting, and I would love to see. We all just want to see Shohei stay healthy and do.
It was a real roller coaster of emotions.
Yes, exactly. It was like.
I mean, you have one inning where it's literally like, this is exactly what every baseball fan has hoped would happen, and then he leaves the game on one of the weirder plays you'll ever see. Just
a lot of weirdness in that last inning, and people were all pissed about Joe Maddon. I saw out there like, oh, of course, Maddon leaving him in, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I remember when we were mad about Maddon taking guys out early and then leaving him in, and yes, you can be mad about those things simultaneously. They can both exist at the same time, but managers aren't perfect. I think there's not Joe Maddon erasure, but Joe Maddon's the best manager that's ever been here. He's still one of the best managers in Major League Baseball. I would say. So I wouldn't fully blame Maddon there. Even maybe I think it's fair to say you'd like him taking out Ohtani earlier there, but I mean, this is pretty minuscule. We're splitting hairs, I think. There's just, you get a drop third strike, a collision at the plate. That sucked. The trash can
and
stuff,
thank God it doesn't seem to be more serious.
Yes, it seems like he's okay. He pinch hit last night and scored a run after he was beamed, after he was hit by a pitch. But yeah, it's like, do you want to see people throwing trash cans on the field? Not all the time. It can't be Christmas every day.
But at least once.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm interested.
Better that than a real trash can. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Sure, there was a real trash can thrown on the field, a real recycling bin thrown on the field in the middle of Jose Altuve's at bat yesterday. After 2 strikes, recycling bin goes on the field, cleaned up. Then Cishek struck him out. So it was
a real Greta Thunberg of heckling right there.
Yes, it was. Keep it clean. But I do hope the Astros version of this is sort of like, when Mariano Rivera announced his retirement, he'd go to each city and each city would do something slightly different to commemorate him. Mm-hmm. I hope each city does something slightly different to shit on the Astros. Like everybody on their tour around town, everyone gets to haze them in their own way, and I am going to enjoy that.
Get a shot from AstraZeneca. It's not as effective as it claims to be.
100%. Also, Yermin Mercedes. He was fun this week.
Very fun. Tell us more about him.
Big man, large adult son, who basically has gotten an opportunity through Eloy's passing, R.I.P. Eloy again. And I believe he started 8 for 8, and then he had another 3-hit game. This dude is just being ridiculous right now. So, and he's hitting the ball really hard too. So enjoying that while it lasts.
Is there any word on Tatis as of now?
No, the last thing I saw was, a shoulder, I'm going to get the word wrong, but subluxation or something. It doesn't look good. I think
sounds like a wrestling move. You know more about it than I do.
Oh yeah, exactly. The Cowboy Bob
getting
Orton
suplexed,
suplex from the top rope. Yeah, it's which I think there was a recent injury someone else had that was it took about 6 weeks to recover.
Oh boy.
So that's unfortunate. But yeah, any other opening week notes that happenings that you wanted to note? I only have one other, but
I mean, love to see Bauer go from a great start to a not great start. That was fun.
my man, yeah, Trevor Bauer had a no-hitter going through 7 and somehow left without a quality start. You love to see it? I do.
You sure do.
Actually. Man, I'm sure we've talked about it before, but no one gets more credit for being interesting. And I tweeted this from the Attaway Games pod, but just you read his tweets and we don't follow him, but they get passed into the feed. You'll see him. He talks about baseball like Andrew Yang talks about New York City, where Yang's like, the pizza, forget about it. It's just like, it's a very Third Rock from the Sun. Are you just an alien who was dropped down here? Where Bauer is like, hey, you guys, how about that fight? That was exciting. And home runs. And it's just like, this is the most basic shit. Why are we giving this dipshit credit for being interesting? He hasn't ever said anything interesting. He just doesn't shut up.
I have nothing to add to that. I completely agree.
And speaking of dipshits, Justin Turner, who was last game of last year in the World Series, testing positive for COVID during the game, getting removed, then running around on the field with his mask pulled down. In the exact next game, 1 year later, opening day, Bellinger hit a ball over the fence. Turner thought it was caught, ran back, passed Cody Bellinger, and cost Bellinger a home run. Because
my fantasy team a home run. Thank you very much.
This is the thing. So Justin Turner, 2 incredible toot blands, 2 just huge, blooper moves in a row. That was
and very, very much hoping that Schwarber and Lester were not engaging in anything that they shouldn't have been, because they are among the people who will not be playing for the Nats.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, Paramount is hoping that they and the rest of the Nats are okay.
Right.
But also you would really hate for anything to come out that they are being foolish.
Yeah. Yeah. There's already we've had some games missed because of COVID, people testing positive for COVID and all that. So we hope that gets safely solved. People get it together. And, I hope a lot of these people consider doing a vaccine thing. Now that
would
most
be nice.
people can,
That would be nice. So by the time we next record, let's say we record next Tuesday for the sake of the argument, we will have played 2 more against Milwaukee, 3 at Pittsburgh, and 1 at Milwaukee. So we got 3 more against the Brewers, 3 more against the Pittsburghs. The Pittsburghs, you like that?
Yeah, I do like it.
I'll take a 4-2. You want a 4-2 of these next 6 games?
I think so. I think that's what you'd feel. That's what you'd go into next week feeling like generally good about. 3-3 through that run is no disaster. Nothing's a disaster this time of year, but just looking at the teams you're playing and how things match up, you want to be adding to that win margin a little bit.
Yeah, and that would mean a 7-3 first 10 games of the season, which you are going to take 100 times out of 100.
Do it forever. Yeah.
So there will be a lot that remains to be seen about this Cubs team and this Cubs season. But no matter what happens, you'd much rather be 3-1 than 1-3, or really anything other than 4-0.
Yes. No, this was a good start. It's very fun to have baseball back, and we're happy to be with you guys again. Again, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at AwayGamesPod. And if you've listened this long, if you wouldn't mind giving us a rating and a review, that would be lovely. We would sincerely appreciate it as we try to independently get our name out to more people who might enjoy this podcast. And we're gonna be doing this every week throughout the year. We're gonna have guests on. We're gonna have a lot of fun. So thanks for being with us, everybody.
Yeah, and if you've made it this long, that means you're a true fan, and I want it to be known. I should have mentioned this earlier, that all credit goes to Kevin for expertly navigating our way through the let's go back to being independent business. It was a lot of work, and I want it out in the ether that all credit is due to Kevin.
Well, Adam sent me a tequila for it, so we're all good. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.